What is up, everyone? Good mic work commentaries back at you to share with you my experience, recap, and review of this past weekend's WWE WrestleMania 39 weekend. And let me tell you, I had the time of my life. First WrestleMania for Good Mic Work in 24 years. I have not been to a WrestleMania since WrestleMania 15 in Philadelphia all the way back in 1999, and I think we can all agree that show sucked. This WrestleMania was a lot different. The spectacle of this thing, I just could not get over it. I have not been to a modern WrestleMania, so I have not really seen these big stadium shows other than WrestleMania 3 that I attended way back in 1987. This massive spectacle that WrestleMania has become, to be able to soak that in the most epic way possible at SoFi Stadium was quite the experience, let me tell you. It was great, it was awesome, and I cannot wait to share with you all of my experiences from the weekend, meeting fans of the channel, meeting friends, fans of wrestling in general, everybody I met and talked to at WrestleCon, and of course, WrestleMania 39 itself in SoFi Stadium was a sight to behold, and it was epic. So here we go to talk about it. Now, first things first, I want to address the obvious, gigantic, enormous elephant sitting right here in this room. And of course, that elephant is WWE being sold to Endeavor and now forming a new publicly traded company merging with the UFC. This was combined with Vince McMahon being back into the fold, essentially re-employing himself back in WWE, causing complete chaos, not only in front of the camera, but behind the camera. And WWE is kind of a mess right now. And it just blows my mind how quickly things changed from Saturday night to Tuesday morning. It's crazy. So like I said, we will be talking about that more in detail on the upcoming podcast. But here we got to talk about positive stuff and happy stuff. And the happy stuff is my experience at WrestleMania 39. It was so much fun. First thing I want to do is say thank you to my wonderful fiance, Elizabeth, for accompanying me to WrestleMania and putting up with the world's biggest fangirl, because that's pretty much what I was like, especially at WrestleCon. It wasn't all torture for her, though. Elizabeth actually is a wrestling fan. She went to a few shows in the early 90s and always liked wrestling growing up, so it was very easy when we started dating for her to get back into wrestling again. And she plays along, man. She was an absolute trooper. On night one of WrestleMania, she dressed as The Rock, complete with jeans and fanny pack and turtleneck and chain around her neck. She looked amazing. And then on night two, she dressed up in full Bret Hart gear, leather jacket, winged eagle title, Bret tights, Bret glasses, everything. She got a lot of honks from cars when we were walking down the street, a lot of attention at WrestleCon, a lot of attention at the show, and a lot of attention from Bret Hart himself, which I'll talk about later. And she was amazing for this whole trip. It was so fun. Thank you, babe, for going with me. It won't be our last WrestleMania after the experience we just had. But we decided to drive up on Friday afternoon. Of course, I live in San Diego, so no flights to take for us. We just made the 2-hour drive up to LA on Friday afternoon and got there around hotel check-in time. So I really kind of missed out on any day one festivities. We didn't hit up WrestleCon on Friday. We did not go to Ring of Honor. We did not go to SmackDown, and we did not go to the Hall of Fame. There was a lot of things to choose from, but since we were just coming up on Friday, we had a hangout planned on Friday night. We weren't trying to overextend ourselves, so we got in about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, got checked in, relaxed a little bit, and then headed into downtown LA to meet up with some friends. There was a lot of things we did not do. Like I said, we didn't do the Ring of Honor show. We didn't do NXT Stand and Deliver, no Hall of Fame, no SmackDown. I know Undertaker had his one-man show, I believe after night one, I think. Or maybe it was Friday night. I can't remember. Also, Mick Foley had a late night WrestleMania thing that he was involved in. There was a lot of podcasts going on. Wally Mania was going on. Lots of things to do, but we elected not to do any of that since we just got up on Friday night. And I got to say, man, I'm definitely getting old. 25 years ago, I'd be able to do every single one of these events and have energy left to spare. But now that I'm 45 years old, it's really hard for me to almost like keep up. And I needed to make sure I was rested, fed, and got enough sleep in between all of these activities to make sure I was, focused and energetic for all of it. Back when I used to go to shows back in the day in the Carolinas, we would be driving all over hell and gone, getting no sleep at all, going from show to show to show. I don't know how the hell I did it back then, but I was able to maintain my energy and have a great time throughout the entire weekend, even though we really didn't overdo it. But what we did was really, really fun. We kicked things off on Friday night, right outside of Staples Center, now known as the Crypto.com Arena, over at the Yard House, which is a really fun brewery and restaurant right next door to the arena. And we invited basically anybody who wanted to stop by to come and say hello. Now, there was a lot going on. SmackDown was going on right across the street. So was the Hall of Fame, and Ring of Honor was going on at the LA Forum. A lot of you guys were doing stuff like that, but many of you stopped by to say hello, and it was really cool. Got to hang out with our buddy Amato, who we hung out with last year at Double or Nothing in Vegas. He was there to spend most of Friday night with us, and we even gave him a lift back to the bridge he was sleeping under. Excuse me, the very nice hotel he was staying at. We gave him a lift back there and even ran into him again at WrestleCon. So Amato, as always, great to hang out with you, my friend, and I'm sure we will be doing that again. I also want to shout out Daniel and Zayn G and Zach and Thomas and everybody else that stopped by to say hello at the Yard House on Friday night. I know a couple of your names I'm missing, but if I do see the photos that we took with your phones posted on social media, I'll make sure I include them here. Thank you to everybody that found time, even with the Hall of Fame, SmackDown, Ring of Honor, everything else going on. Those of you who found time to stop by and say hello, very cool. The Yard House was a blast. As soon as we got there, we saw Steve Corino and Zoe Stark having some dinner. Adam Pierce walked in with Abyss. We saw Nia Jax in the house as well. Maybe a few other people. I can't remember right now. I know Chelsea Green was walking by at one point. So there was a lot of WWE talent and wrestling talent in there along with all of us. And it was just a really, really fun time and a great way to kick off WrestleMania weekend. And I'm really glad I did not put down too many beers because I did risk a hangover. Luckily, we got back to the hotel Friday night at a decent time and got a good amount of sleep before waking up at about 8 a.m. to hit up a WrestleCon in downtown LA. I also want to say a massive thank you to everyone who approached me and said hello, whether it be at the show or in the streets or at WrestleCon. It was really cool to meet and say hi to a lot of you and to chat with you for a little while. As soon as we got to the hotel on Friday, we walked right in the door and I was recognized right away by a listener named Chris. Great to meet you. And then at WrestleCon, a lot of you approached me to say hello. It was very cool to see everybody and talk to everybody and just interact in person instead of, through a keyboard. It was really awesome. And thank you to everybody who said hi. A couple of specific shout outs. I want to say hello to Brandon Yelverton. Finally met you after all of these years. A long time listener. We were really happy to see you. I'm sorry we couldn't hang out any longer. We chatted for a little while and took a picture. And Brandon, Elizabeth absolutely loved you. You were one of her favorite interactions of the whole weekend. Thank you for being so awesome. And thank you for being so cool. Also, Michael Solar, pro wrestler trained at the Nightmare Factory, came over to say hello. He was hanging out near the Billy Gunn table, and I got my picture with Billy, and he came over and said hi. So good to meet you, my friend, and shot him a follow over on the social medias. And I wasn't able to meet as many of you as I wanted to at the show. I think there was about 5 or 6 meetings that I missed out on and just couldn't make it happen. It was kind of hard at SoFi to venture or wander too far out of your zone. I was in a pretty good section, so they weren't just letting anybody come down there or leave, and you could only really kind of go so far. Plus, I didn't have time to wander around this gigantic stadium, which SoFi is insanely big. And so I kind of told you guys, if you want to meet me, come over to my section. A couple of you were able to make it there. Some of you were not. And I promise we will do our best to get a meetup the next time we're able to have a big weekend like this. It was great to see our buddy Sean again. Sean has a YouTube channel, Rose Scythe. He is actually responsible and composed the WrestleMania cover that I used in the intro of this video. And his link to his YouTube channel is in the description. Please go check it out for all sorts of great pro wrestling covers and other musical covers as well. Great dude. Lives here in San Diego in the same town as me, and was able to meet him and his girlfriend Vanessa at Dynamite at the LA Forum back in January. And great to see you again here, Sean. And I'm sure we will be hanging out here in town at some point down the road. Also bumped into Kyle from the Apron Bump podcast. I've been a guest on his channel before. Great to meet him as well. And everybody that I just said hello to in any capacity, thank you from the bottom of my heart. It was so cool to meet you guys, talk to you guys, and just interact. I absolutely loved it. I was hoping to get a chance to meet a few other people that I'm friendly with online or who follow me or I've had private interactions with, people like Jack Farmer or John Alba, Sean Ross Sapp. All these guys have been incredibly friendly to me in the past, and any sort of private interactions I've had with them have been nothing but terrific. But unfortunately, wasn't able to see any of them this time, but I'm sure we will get other opportunities to meet. At the end of the day, I'm very happy and very pleased with the amount of people I did get to meet and all of you that I had a chance to sit and chat with for a bit. So thank you again to everybody that said hello. You guys are the best. It was fun. I can't wait to do it again. So after a night of rest after Friday's hangout, we got up early and headed to downtown Los Angeles to hit up WrestleCon, which was taking place at the Biltmore Hotel. Now, we were staying in Inglewood, about 3 miles away from SoFi, so this was about a 30-minute drive. Only about 12 miles, but about a 30 or 40-minute drive into the city with insane LA traffic. But we got down there pretty early at a good time, got parked, walked in there, and this was my first wrestling convention. I have never been to one of these before. I was a total virgin, so I was watching some YouTube videos, trying to get an idea of what these things were like. We bought superfan tickets, which gave us access to everything they were offering, so we could just kind of come and go as we please. And as soon as we walked in there, I really felt like deer in the headlights. It was still kind of early in the morning, and it was like sensory overload. There was so much going on. You walk right in and it's a bit overwhelming. I even started sweating a bit. I'm like, I need to like relax because it was just a lot of stuff going on everywhere you looked. There's wrestlers, there's things happening. It's like you needed to have your head on a swivel, and it kind of overwhelmed Elizabeth and I at first. We were like, wow, this is crazy. So I really wanted to take a deep breath, walk around, get a feel for what's available before we started taking part in any activities. So the WrestleCon convention was broken up into 3 rooms. There was like one upstairs and one in the middle, one downstairs, and each room was about the same size with about the same amount of wrestlers and personalities in there. So after we made a sweep through everything, the first person I was able to see and say hello to was good friend of the channel and host of Wrestling with Regret, Brian Zayn. Excellent to see you again, my friend. Was able to go over to his table and shoot a video on his camera for his vlog that I'm sure will be posted at some point over on his channel, and it was great to talk to him for a while. But like I said, I still was in deer in the headlights mode, and we took an absolutely abysmal selfie. That's completely my fault. I'm not very good at selfies, and I'm not very good at holding the camera and talking to it either. So sorry, Brian, that we didn't get a very good one there, and it was a little bit awkward, but I was still kind of in wake-up mode trying to process everything, and I wasn't even fully wired yet. So unfortunately, we kind of had an awkward selfie there, but hopefully the video I took for him didn't look too terrible. And Brian was very busy as well. He called, I think, Prestige Wrestling on Friday night and had a match with Simon Miller, which he won at Mitzamania on Sunday. So Brian was incredibly busy, but as always, great to see you, Brian. Sorry we couldn't hang out a little bit longer. I've been a guest on his channel a couple of times. He's been in my home before. Brian's a great dude. Great to see you again. And hopefully next time we bump into each other, we'll have some more time to hang out. But it was really cool to see Brian Zayn first. Then we started to circle back around and decide who we want to meet, who we want to talk to, who we want to approach. And the first person I saw and wanted to say hello to was El Hijo del Vikingo. And he was there with the AAA Mega Championship, which was really cool. And I just wanted to tell him that I am absolutely amazed with his work and thought he did great in his match with Kenny Omega and everything I've seen of him so far here in the States. And very cool to hold a AAA championship on my shoulder. Very nice dude, very awesome, very gracious. Great to meet Vikingo. Also got to reconnect with Matt Hardy. Haven't seen him since way back in the North Carolina days, and chatted a little bit with him. Told him I was in the building when he won his first tag team championships with Jeff, and offered some pleasantries. We talked about our hometowns a little bit. Matt was very, very cool. Also said hello to Christopher Daniels, who I've met on the Jericho Cruise. He also did a cameo for the channel, so I wanted to make sure I said hello to him. And it was right around that time that we realized that Bret is there. Not only is Bret there, Bret is in the same room we're in. I mean, I have to, right? I have to meet him. His line wasn't crazy. We decided to kind of get in line, but when you're in line, you're also in between a whole bunch of tables, and it does not look like it's going to be that long to get up to Bret. And all I really wanted from Bret was a photo. I don't really need another autograph or a picture or anything like that. I didn't want to carry any extra shit with me. So everybody that I met, I elected just to say hello and get a selfie. I don't really do or need autographs. There's nothing wrong with them. It's just it's not something I usually seek out. I'm just looking for a picture. I'm just looking to tell the talent that I appreciate their work or share memories with them and create a moment. That's really all I'm looking to do. So I figured since I have never met Bret Hart before, I should fucking meet Bret Hart. So we plopped ourselves in line. Elizabeth even said, dude, I'll stay right here. You can go on and do other things if you want. So I decided to dip out and go meet Mr. Dean Malenko. And it was an absolute pleasure and an honor to meet Malenko. He's one of the greatest of all time. And of course, we know Dean is dealing with his battle with Parkinson's right now, and he has been having some health troubles in recent years. And it was just a true honor to meet one of the best mat generals to ever lace up a pair of boots, Mr. Malenko. It was indeed an honor, and love you very much. And then a few minutes went by, and it was about that time for me to meet my favorite wrestler that I've ever had in my life, Bret the Hitman Hart. You know, Bret wasn't even really on my radar for the weekend. I wasn't even sure if he was booked for WrestleCon because there were so many wrestlers booked. It was like everybody was booked, and I didn't even bother to see if Bret was going to be there because I was going to WrestleCon and WrestleMania anyway. Bret being there would be just a bonus. And even if Bret was there, in my head, I was thinking that a meeting might not be possible because some talents there, like Mercedes Moné's and a couple of other ones, had special times, blocks of times where you could meet them in a completely separate area. And they had very, very long lines. I'm not willing to wait in a very long line. But Bret's table was right there in the middle of everybody. He was in between Julia Hart and Kelly. And on the other side of Bret, I believe, was Nia Jax. And he was right in between. Bret had the longest line of everybody there, but he was accessible. And I think we only waited in line 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes. That was it. But even when we were there, you could take videos and look at things going on around you. It wasn't like you were just sitting there chewing your nails or anything. So it got to be our time. And I was able to approach Bret, sit down next to him, shake his hand, and I really didn't care about anything else other than that, because the fact that I have never been able to tell this dude to his face that he was my favorite wrestler and how much his career meant to me is really crazy when you think about all the shows I've been to, and not getting a chance to ever meet Bret and tell him what he meant to me in person has always been kind of a bucket list item of mine. So this was a really, really nice bonus to be able to meet Bret. I didn't see this coming. I didn't think it was going to happen. So for us just to share a couple of minutes together and for me to tell Bret, you were my absolute favorite wrestler. I don't really know how to put 35 years of love into 3 sentences. It's really hard to do that. So all I did is I asked him how he was doing. I said, how are you? I said, how's your family? And he's like, it's really nice that you asked that. He goes, I'm great. Everything's great. Thank you for asking. And I just appreciated it. And, you know, I was fangirling out. It's crazy. You know, in my job, in my regular job, not only this YouTube job, but my regular job, I meet a lot of famous people. I've met some of the biggest and most famous athletes in the world. You know, Michael Jordan and Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers and Tony Hawk and you name it. I've had interactions with a lot of famous people, and I can always play it cool because it's my job to play it cool. You have to in those situations. And I've never really been starstruck. I can talk to people like they're normal people. I'm not nervous or weird or anything like that around him. I am Joe Cool when it comes to that stuff. But when I met Bret, I think it's the most starstruck I've ever been because it's so much of my personal life. It's so many memories, you know, just flooding in and just seeing this guy and shaking his hand. I'm like, holy shit, you have no clue, dude. You have no idea what you meant to me. And it just felt good to be able to do that. And I was walking around with a shit-eating grin on my face for the rest of the weekend because I did not think I was going to meet Bret Hart on a weekend that I was already planning on having a whole hell of a lot of fun. So Bret Hart was the ultimate cherry on top to the weekend. To be able to meet him just really made my life complete. So probably even going to frame that picture. I know meeting wrestlers at conventions isn't, you know, something that's super rare. A lot of people are able to do this. A lot of you have been able to meet Bret Hart before. One of you even got Bret to, or videoed Bret saying Greg Morgan is the best. You did that as a favor to me. So it's not like, you know, meeting these guys is something really difficult to do. All you have to do is go to a convention and you could meet them. But I've never met a hero before. It's the first time I've ever met one of my heroes ever. So at 45 years old, it's it's just a lot of memories flooding in, and I was struggling to keep my composure, but I was able to do it and walked away from that interaction extremely happy. And I'm happy that Bret's photo is the best photo that I took all weekend. I look like a complete dork in pictures, especially now that I'm getting older. But the one with me and Bret, I think, is perfect. We both look great. I'm going to frame that bad boy, and such a great experience to meet him. I was marking the F out. That's for sure. Elizabeth, of course, did do her best to get a video of the whole interaction, but people were in her way. And I think we got a little bit of footage of me and Bret talking, but not very much, as you can see. So we decide to leave that room and walk into another portion of WrestleCon, and I'm a bit loopy from my Bret Hart meeting, and we walk out the door, and who do we see in the hallway? Molly Holly, all by herself there with a little booth taking pictures. She was not charging any money for pictures. She had a charity with a QR code, and all she was asking for was a donation of any amount, even $1, and she'd be happy to take a photo with us. I was able to talk to her for a little while because there wasn't a lot of people around her, and Molly Holly is an absolute sweetheart, and the wrestling business does not deserve her. I was really happy to get to meet Molly Holly. We continue on through WrestleCon, and that's when I see FTR's table, and they are hanging out with Cher Delaware. Big surprise to see her hanging out with those guys. And walked up to FTR, got a chance to meet them, told them about the podcast a little bit. We talked a little bit about North Carolina because they live in Asheville, and I'm a big Asheville mark. I love the mountains out there in that part of the state, and had spent a little bit of time out there and always loved it. So the fact that they live there with Edge, I thought was really cool. So shot the shit with them a little bit. Wished them luck in their match on Wednesday, which I'm recording this just a few hours before Dynamite airs. So FTR is either going to be new AEW Tag Team Champions, or they're going to be leaving the company. If I had to predict, they're going to be AEW Tag Team Champions, but I suppose a swerve or something like that is possible on Wednesday. We will have to see. But it was cool to talk to them a little bit and get a photo with those top guys, one of my favorite teams in the business. Very awesome to see them. Also, I moseyed over a few more feet down to meet Sean Waltman, X-Pac, 123 Kid, 6, member of the Clique. You know who he is. Poor guy just lost his best friend, his world, his dog Lula, who he adopted and rescued many years ago. Basically, Lula, it felt like operated as like an emotional support animal for Sean. He carried her everywhere. It reminded me a lot of Steve-O. Steve-O from Jackass adopted a dog as well, I think named Wendy, who he kind of found in a similar situation as X-Pac. X-Pac, I think, had to chase this dog down through the streets to rescue it and get it some medical help and adopt it. Steve-O did the same thing with a dog way down in Ecuador or something, and that dog has been a real emotional crutch for Steve-O as well, and it's heartbreaking when you have to lose your best friend that is a pet. How do I know? I went through it right before Christmas when my best bud, Bub, passed away, and it was heartbreaking, and that wound is nowhere close to being closed yet. So I wanted to at least make sure I approached X-Pac and at least, tell him that I know what he's going through. I'm not trying to bring up grim shit or trying to kill his mood or anything like that, but he just lost his dog a day or so before this, and he still attended WrestleCon and went through this and had to meet hundreds of people when he's probably dealing with a lot of internal pain, and just wanted to let him know that I understand what he's going through and my heart is with him, and it's absolutely heartbreaking when something like that happens. But, with pets, you can hopefully take comfort in the great lives that we gave them, and Sean no doubt gave Lula one hell of a life and saved her life. So hopefully he can at least carry that with him as comfort. But I wanted to meet Sean just to tell him that I know what he's going through. So the first day of WrestleCon was loaded with a lot of fun. It was really kind of overwhelming, but WrestleCon was downtown LA. WrestleMania was at SoFi, so we got out of there pretty early on Saturday to give us enough time to not only have some food, but get all the way to Inglewood so we could go to WrestleMania. We were back at it again, though, on Sunday morning. This time, we got there a little bit later, and we knocked out a lot in a short amount of time, because now by Sunday, all the wrestlers, most of them anyway, were still there, but the crowd was a lot thinner than it was the day before. People were probably getting tired, or they did everything they needed to do the first 2 days. So Sunday was a really easy day to get around. We were able to walk around, see a lot, do a lot. And since Elizabeth was dressed in full Bret Hart gear, and Bret was still there. And by Sunday, he didn't have much of a line in front of his table. Why don't we have Elizabeth meet Bret Hart too? So we went ahead and did that. I insisted that I buy her a photo with Bret because I thought he would get a big kick out of seeing her. Plus, I would get to see Bret 2 days in a row, and he acknowledged our meeting the day before, which was really cool. And Bret really loved Elizabeth's outfit. I think he even called her a walking tribute, which was kind of cool. And it really made Elizabeth happy because Elizabeth watched Bret Hart wrestle live when she went to shows as a kid in the early 90s and stuff. And she was always a big Bret Hart fan as well. Maybe not as big as me, but hey, she's the one that dressed up as him, not me. So she went full on, and Bret loved it. And it was really cool to get a photo with not only me and Bret, but with her and Bret as well. So now, just like me the day before, Elizabeth is all giddy with excitement because we both got to meet the greatest goddamn professional wrestler to ever live, right? So after that, we go down and continue walking through WrestleCon. I noticed the Powers of Pain sitting there. Warlord and the Barbarian were a big part of my childhood as well. I think I first saw them wrestle in 1986. Something like that. I think I saw the Barbarian for the first time in 85. So we're talking about a time period when I was 8 or 9 years old, and now I'm 45. So being able to meet them was very cool. And of course, they tried to choke me by the neck, but I survived. And it was awesome to meet those two legends for sure. And speaking of legendary tag teams, rest in peace to Bushwhacker Butch. The Bushwhackers had a table there. I saw Bushwhacker Luke at WrestleCon. I am regretting now not going over and saying hello, but the whole time, every time I walked by their table, I never did see Butch. And the funny thing is I actually had the thought in my head of, oh my God, did Butch pass away and I forgot? That was actually the thought I had in my head. I'm like, well, maybe he's sick or maybe he's just in the bathroom. Who knows where Bushwhacker Butch is? Just Luke appears to be here. And then on Monday, I believe, we learn that Bushwhacker Butch actually passed away. So rest in peace to Bushwhacker Butch. The Sheep Herders and the Bushwhackers are probably, one of the most recognizable teams of the 80s, even though the Bushwhackers was a stark comparison and contrast to what the Sheep Herders were in terms of wrestling characters. The Bushwhackers, I think, were as recognizable as any other tag team during that era. They never won titles in WWE or anything like that, but between the marketability and the marching and the kids and all of that stuff, they made their mark in WWE and in wrestling in general. And I thought it was cool that they had a fun-loving gimmick and a couple of guys that could get gnarly when they wanted to, when they were working in grittier territories. Legendary tag team, and rest in peace to Bushwhacker Butch. Then came our second favorite wrestler meetup of the entire weekend. Our first favorite, of course, was Bret Hart. That goes without saying. But after that, we met Mick Foley, and Mick Foley could not have been kinder. He was so awesome. We were actually listening to Foley's pod in the car during all of our driving up to LA and around the city. I think we listened to the China episode, the Stephanie episode, Austin, WrestleMania 14, the Screw Job. We listened to a lot of Mick Foley's podcast, and to be able to see him just minutes after we had his voice playing in my car speakers was pretty cool. He was so nice. As usual, I've met Mick Foley before, met him 26 years ago in 1997, and I talked about that with him, and he was just really, really kind and in no hurry to rush us out of there. He was so nice. He insisted on taking 3 selfies, one with the dude glasses, one with the mankind mask, and one with his regular face. And as we're doing that, he sees Elizabeth kind of recording us, and he's like, come on over here and get in on this. And so she was able to pop in and get a selfie as well. That was so cool. Mick Foley is one of the nicest people the wrestling business has ever seen, and it was awesome to see Mick in person again. And then, as if Mick Foley wasn't nice enough, then I get a chance to meet Adam Cole and Britt Baker, who, let me tell you, are 2 of the nicest people on planet fucking Earth. My God, so nice, so gracious. I've always been a big fan of Adam Cole, and one of the points I was trying to make throughout WrestleCon is I wanted to at least approach wrestlers not only that I wanted to meet, but also wrestlers that I knew were genuinely good people. That's why I wanted to meet Mick Foley. And that's why I wanted to meet Adam Cole, because they're great people. They're great pro wrestlers, and I'm massive fans of theirs. Funny story about the Adam Cole picture, though. Each booth there has instructions on what it costs to meet these guys, and some wrestlers are cash only, which I would not recommend. I think you need to have a Venmo or a PayPal or option, something like that. And Adam Cole had a PayPal option, but we were also kind of down in the basement of the Biltmore. So I was trying to Venmo the payment for this, but I'm not getting service down there. And I think his photos were like $50 or something like that. And I'm like, I'll figure this out. And they're like, try to switch to the Wi-Fi. And my phone was just like not working. So I'm like, you know what? I might have a little cash left in my wallet. I'll just try that since I can't get my stupid Wi-Fi to work. So I open up my wallet and I look like such an idiot. And I'm pulling out like money. And I actually have $49 in cash. I'm like, well, you do it for 49? And Adam Cole's like, hell no. He's like, of course, dude, get over here. So it just looked so awkward, me trying to pull out these 5s and 1s. And it's just I don't like doing transactions with cash. It's just awkward. I'd rather just point my phone where I need to point it. Boom, there you go. You're paid. It's over. And I felt like a fucking idiot trying to pull this money out and pay Adam Cole to get a picture. But he was so damn nice. We got to chat for a little bit. Britt Baker was right next to him. So I got a picture with her as well. And by then I was able to figure out my Wi-Fi problem. Somebody was like, connect to this Biltmore guest thing. It'll probably get you in. And I was able to figure it out, but it was a little awkward there at first. But I don't really like going up to a wrestler and handing them cash money for a photo. It's just weird. I don't know how to describe it. So I'd rather just do it all digitally if at all possible. But I really did not want to pass up a picture with Adam Cole. So I was willing to pull out money and look like a moron doing it. And I owe Adam Cole $1. I will owe him that for the rest of my life. I'm not sure if Adam Cole will ever get that dollar unless I go on his Twitch and donate $1 or something like that. I don't know how to get that buck to Adam Cole. If any of you guys see Adam Cole walking around, give him $1 from Good Mic Work, and I'll pay you back. Thank you for that. But Adam Cole, Britt Baker, really cool. Britt, remember doing the cameo for the channel, which was really nice. And they were just incredible people. And I was in the building at Double or Nothing last year to see them both win the Owen Hart tournaments. And I had my Owen hoodie on that weekend as well. I don't think I had it on in this picture, but it was just a great, great time, great interaction. And I cannot say enough about how nice the wrestlers were. Everybody that I met was so nice. You know who else was cool? Billy Gunn. Holy shit. Billy Gunn, seeing this guy in person. Now, I've seen Billy Gunn wrestle in person a million times. As a matter of fact, I was in the 4th row at Raw in '97 when the Outlaws beat LOD for their first tag team championships. I talked about that. And I've seen him wrestle in person a lot of times. And I think I met him at least once during the Attitude Era in a Waffle House or something. But I guess I just forgot how large this guy is. I mean, Billy is still jacked even at 60 years old or whatever he is. He was just fucking massive. And I popped him when I told him that he wasn't as big as I thought he would be. And he laughed his ass off on that. Just a really cool interaction. One of the highlights for me of the weekend. Another highlight, Lillian Garcia. I think Lillian, I've seen her announce as many shows as the Fink back in the day. I mean, her and Howard, it was one of the two of them. Every time I went to a pay-per-view, Raw, SmackDown, whatever, had a chance to see Lillian live in person many times back in the day. I've even had her react to signs I was holding up during the Attitude Era. Got to see her a few years back when I attended Survivor Series and we went to Bruce and Conrad's live show. She was there for that. So to see Lillian again was awesome because, I mean, other than the Fink, she's my favorite announcer in WWE history. I just absolutely love Lillian. She is a sweetheart, kind of like Molly Holly. They're just really, really good people, and I love them. So I wanted to get a picture with her, say hello, wish her the best, ask her how she's doing, that sort of thing, and could not have been happier to get a chance to meet Lillian Garcia again. Also bumped into Xenia, who we follow each other on social media and have spoken a few times. I don't think she is on Twitter anymore because Twitter has too many assholes on it, but she was on Instagram, took a picture and posted one with her, which was very cool. She is an absolute gem in the wrestling community, and it was great to meet her too, as well as anybody else from YouTube, Twitter that I might have seen or fist bumped or said hi to. All y'all were fantastic. Every single personal interaction that I had on WrestleMania weekend was great. So that does it for WrestleCon. That was pretty much our WrestleCon experience in a nutshell, day 1 and day 2. I went a little overboard because I don't know when the next time I'm going to be able to do one of these. is going to be. And plus, I wanted to get some photos and some meetups with wrestlers. This isn't something I would be able to do or even afford to do every single pay-per-view. But this was WrestleMania. It was a special occasion. So I was willing to splurge for these interactions. But again, this is not going to be a normal thing for me unless I find some way to get to Philadelphia next year for WrestleMania. So far, WrestleMania 40 is out. But I'll make a deal with you. If we can get to 50,000 subscribers by December, I'll go. I think I'm safe. It's gonna take 15,000 more subscribers to get there, 14 more thousand subscribers to get there. But if we do and we make it to 50K by the end of the year, I will go to WrestleMania 40. So make it happen. Tell your friends. Tell everybody to subscribe over here to Good Mic Work Commentaries. So that does it for WrestleCon, and that was so much fun. That was a lot to take in, and it was just a blast. It's an experience that I'm going to remember for a long, long time because I have not been to a convention before, and it's not something that I regularly do. So it was all new to me, and it was all very fun, and had a blast. And that was just part of the weekend. The whole reason we were going to LA was to go to WrestleMania, WWE's big 2-night extravaganza with a pretty stacked card. And we left WrestleCon day one on Saturday pretty early, maybe 1 o'clock in the afternoon, because the show started at 5 and we knew it would take us a good hour to get up to SoFi, maybe a little less than an hour, but then park, walk to the arena, get in. We were hungry. We had to eat. So we cruised up and found a Chick-fil-A pretty close to Crenshaw Boulevard. I was just waiting to see Furious on the corner educating young men on the right way to live your life, but I did not see any of that going on. No Lawrence Fishburne hanging around Crenshaw or Doughboy or any of those guys, but it was cool to kind of stop there, have some Chick-fil-A, get some food in our bellies. Elizabeth had to put her rock costume on, and then we were in the car heading to SoFi. This turned out to be a really good decision. We elected to not park at the stadium because that can be madness. We parked about a mile away, a little bit less than a mile away, in a parking garage for about $25. We didn't really do that to save money. We did it to avoid the madness that one can face when they're trying to leave a stadium parking lot. And since we had never been to SoFi before, we figured if we parked a little bit down the road, all we would have to do is leave, walk out, get to our car, and we should be able to get back to the hotel pretty quick. It turned out to be a very good decision because even though the walk kind of sucked, on night one after the show, apparently there were all sorts of problems getting out of SoFi. This tends to be a theme at WrestleMania. You hear this every year. I know it happened at MetLife and a couple of other years where fans really struggled to get home after the event is over. So it sounds like they had those issues again on night one, but we were able to walk back to the car pretty quickly and get home. But we decided, like I said, to walk to the stadium. So once we parked, it was still pretty early, but there were wrestling shirts everywhere for miles and miles. Everywhere you looked, it was WWE wrestling shirts or some sort of wrestling themed attire on the people walking around. Everybody in the area was going to WrestleMania, and we started making the walk on this beautiful, nice Southern California day to SoFi Stadium. Now, it's been an unseasonably and unusually wet season for us. Extremely rainy, extremely wet. It's the wettest I've ever seen it in Southern California, and I've lived here now for almost 13 years, and I've never seen a rainy season like this ever. So I was really hoping that the weather was going to cooperate because we had some rain a couple of days before WrestleMania. But luckily for the weekend, we had sunny skies. Could have been a little warmer, but it was all blue skies, and the walk was very pleasant heading into SoFi with the palm trees and the sights and the fans, and seeing the arena there in the distance was getting us hyped up as we were making the walk over to SoFi. As we approached the stadium, it became apparent what an insanely huge and spectacular venue this is. This is easily the nicest stadium I've ever been in. I think they spent $6 billion on this thing, constructing it. My God. It was just so large and such a sight to behold. Very unique design, architectural design on the stadium. It just looks really, really cool. And getting in was a breeze. What I liked the most about SoFi is everything was pretty convenient. Usually when you're dealing with gobs of people that range in the tens of thousands, it can be a little bit crowded. It can be a little bit overwhelming. It can be a little bit stressful, but it was a breeze getting in. The lines were not long at all. Once the lines started moving, we were a little ways back, But once they started moving, everybody was just going through very easily, through the metal detectors, through the ticket thing, and into the building very quickly. There were relatively no lines at the restrooms throughout the show. It was very easy to get food and alcohol. The lines weren't too crazy because they had concession stands everywhere. They had people up and down the aisle selling beer as well if you wanted one. It wasn't hard to find beverages or food or to use the bathroom at all. It was really, really nice and very luxurious. It was awesome. But as soon as we got in the building, the very first thing I wanted to do is just go to our seats before we did anything else. Let's just go right down to our seats because I want to see where we're going to be. I knew where our seats were, on the seating chart and the map. I knew like position-wise where we were going to be, but I wanted to see exactly what it was going to look like, what our view to the ring was going to look like, and how the set was going to look. So we got down there nice and early, and the first thing we did was find our section, walk down to our seats, and soak it in. And at this point, not a lot of people had entered the building yet. I think it was still around 3 o'clock. They opened the doors at 2:30, so we had definitely gotten to our seats by the time it was 3 o'clock and sat down and got to look at this great set. I was tweeting pictures and videos immediately as soon as we sat down. Look at this set. And I think you guys agree this is one of the nicest WrestleMania sets they've ever done. I've seen people compare it to WrestleMania 33 in terms of the greatest sets ever. And it looked great with the movie posters and the Hollywood theme. It was so amazing. It really puts into perspective the scale that WWE is and how big of a global company they are to be able to put together spectacles this large, this grand. I loved the floating light rig. I loved the ramp. Everything just looked so magnificent. And I could not have picked a better WrestleMania to attend in terms of being able to see a spectacular set. It was very cool. So we sat down, we took all that in. I took all the photos and videos that I could of the empty arena and the stage as people filed in. And I had everything wrong in my head. I actually thought the show started at 4 p.m. here Pacific time because I'm stupid. It starts at 8 p.m. So it gets to be about 3:45 and I'm like, John Cena and Austin Theory are supposed to kick off the show and this building is 20% full. And I'm like, what's going to happen? And it took me a minute to register and kind of realize what was happening. I'm like, oh, the kickoff starts at 4, you moron. The main show starts at 5. So by the time the main card started, the crowd had finally started to fill in. So being able to get there early and get all the videos and pictures I could of the set, we made sure we accomplished that on night 1. That way on night 2, we wouldn't have to get there so early. As long as we were there by showtime on night 2, that's all I really cared about. So getting there nice and early on Saturday was great. So we could, just take it in and just enjoy the experience. So after we got all of our photos, our selfies with the set and all of that, we headed up to the concession area and found ourselves a couple of beers. Nothing tastes better at a wrestling show than a nice $19 beer. $38 for our 2 beers it cost. I got myself a nice Broken Skull American Lager, and Elizabeth was knocking back some Bud Light blackberries or black cherries or something like that. So we had a couple of cold ones and we were ready to rock. Now we need to get into this review. We've been talking all of this time and haven't even talked about the WrestleMania card yet. But once we were there, we are in our seats, the fans filed in, we had our frosty beverages in hand. It was time to rock and roll. And of course, we know night 1 was scheduled to have John Cena take on Austin Theory in the Curtain Jerker, the opening match, the first time John Cena's been in the first match since WrestleMania 20 in a match that was also for the United States title. So this one was Theory and Cena. They opened things up, and right off the bat on WrestleMania, they're already tugging at your heartstrings. There would be a couple of moments like this on night 1 and 2 where it would really almost get you choked up and emotional right off the bat. John Cena had a very, very nice Make-A-Wish themed entrance. And of course, we all know how important John Cena has been to the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and to have all of that highlighted in his entrance was very, very cool to see. In terms of the match, a lot of people are kind of saying that Cena might have phoned this one in, and that's not surprising to me. As soon as this match was announced to open up night 1, what I said on the podcast was that this sounds like John Cena's just coming in there, doing his job, and getting the hell out of there and getting back to whatever movie he's currently filming, because John Cena has a whole other life right now, and it sounds like he's going to be on a plane heading to wherever he needs to go before match 2 is even over. That's what I felt like was the case here. And they did not really go that overboard in this match. This was a pretty standard match. No crazy finishes. John Cena, a guy who was kicked out of literally every finish multiple times in some of the biggest matches in his career, is put down with only one here against Austin Theory. Theory hits Cena with the low blow and the A-Town down and gets the win on John Cena, just like that. Now, I do think Cena had Theory tapping out when the referee was in a bump or wasn't looking or whatever. But still, when you look at how the match was structured and the finish, it was pretty simple, and they definitely didn't attempt to give you any sort of WrestleMania classic here. John Cena is currently tied with Ric Flair for the most championships in WWE, or I'm sorry, of all time. And I was always under the assumption that it was a given that John Cena would win one more title and break Ric Flair's record. But John Cena has got another life now. He's finally starting to look his age. That bald spot was visible all the way up in my section, in my seat. And I will always be a John Cena defender. I think the majority, I would say 90% of SoFi was pro Cena during this match. It's just kind of sad to see Cena not really be a factor right now. But if he's going to come in and do anything, I'm glad that he was able to come in and help put over a guy that WWE obviously has big plans for. A lot of people don't like Theory, but WWE clearly does. So if they like somebody and they want to push him, they should beat somebody, and they should beat somebody major. And Theory getting a win here over Cena is great for Theory, but I think overall the match was just a little bit flat and didn't feel like your typical John Cena big time match at all. Now, it would be cool if this thing is able to come full circle down the road, because due to the low blow, Theory was able to get a win on John. I would like to think that whenever Cena comes back, he might not wrestle at all in all of 2023 again. We might not see him for another year. So if we go a long period of time without seeing John Cena in the ring, and during that time, Austin Theory gets himself to main event status, maybe down the road when John Cena does break Ric Flair's record, maybe the person he beats for the title is Austin Theory. Maybe they do that. Who knows? But the more and more movies John Cena makes, the less and less likely it seems that he will come back for any sort of long-term run. Even when Cody asked him for a match on Raw a few weeks ago, John Cena goes, "Oh, I can't promise that." So it doesn't even sound like he's really in the position to promise one match at this point, much less a program. So hopefully, before John Cena is completely finished with wrestling, we get one more run. It doesn't have to be long, 4 months, 2 to 4 months, something like that. Come back on TV, win a championship, work a program with somebody, put your heart and soul into it, and let that be your last hurrah in terms of anything that you're going to do from a championship winning perspective in WWE. Then he can go off and do any amount of movies he wants, and he can come back in for special occasions and play the role of a Rock or play the role of a Hulk Hogan, where he just comes in every now and then, maybe gets an occasional match. I still think in 10 years, John Cena could still have a match in WWE. I mean, if Hogan's wrestling with artificial hips and shit, I think John Cena will be more than capable at age 50 to have a match himself. So I think that Cena could always come back and do a WrestleMania match on, as an attraction. But in terms of winning a championship, I think he's down to his last couple of years here. And if it's going to happen, it needs to happen relatively soon. Otherwise, there's really no point in doing it. But it was a good opener nonetheless for Austin Theory. But in terms of how I view this match on WrestleMania as a whole, it's one of the least memorable ones. After that, match 2 was a match that I thought was pointless. These WrestleMania showcase matches just felt like what they were doing at WrestleMania 20, where they were making all these fatal four-ways and stuff. It felt a lot like that. And this wasn't even a number 1 contenders match. I don't know why it wasn't, because they gave the Street Profits a match against Owens and Zayn on Monday night, didn't they? So they should have just made this a number 1 contenders bout. I had picked, I believe, Ricochet and Strowman to win. They did not. The Street Profits won in a match that was way better than I ever expected it to be. I didn't think this match was going to suck, per se. I just didn't think it was a match that I gave a shit about. And I said as much in the predictions, even on Just Alex's channel last week. I said the same thing. I'm like, I don't care who wins this. But this was way more fun than it needed to be. Chad Gable hitting the Germans on Strowman, the near falls, the saves, the athleticism, and of course, Montez Ford with his ridiculous frog splash and all that stuff. It was a lot of fun. And this match was super entertaining to everybody in the audience. The people in our section were going nuts for it. So WrestleMania was off to a good start here. In the end, Street Profits got the win, and that was that. And then it was on to Logan Paul taking on Seth Rollins. There was so much going on in this match. My God, both guys had very interesting entrances. WrestleMania was loaded with great entrances this year. Logan Paul comes in on a zip line, kind of Shawn Michaels style, WrestleMania 12. It was very slow, but he was coming down. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't recall anybody hanging from the ceiling after Owen Hart died. That was the last time I remember anybody having any entrance anywhere similar to this at all. So we haven't seen that in quite some time. It was pretty crazy to see Logan Paul make that entrance. And then Seth's entrance was also great. We had a conductor coming out there that gets the crowd singing his song. He comes out with this insane outfit. I don't even know how to describe what he had on, but then he takes off his big jacket to reveal this Jeff Jarrett-esque looking shit around his neck and his chest. I don't even know what that was. And he immediately ripped that off as well. And the match was exactly what we expected. We talked about this in the predictions that Logan Paul has produced and come through and performed well in every match he's ever had. Him and Roman tore the house down in Saudi Arabia last year, and we knew him and Seth would likely do the same thing. And we had some extra components out there. There was a lot of ads on this year's WrestleMania, by the way. The Intuit tax ads, the Cinnamon Toast Crunch, all the other shit they're doing. That's probably going to become the norm once the Endeavor transaction completes. We might start seeing stuff like ads on the ring mat and shit like that, but they might, in lieu of that, start doing what they were doing here and having different advertisements during certain matches. Now, Logan Paul had his big Prime water bottle mascot out there with him, who was pretty much a non-factor throughout the match, but you knew somebody was under there. I think a lot of people thought it was Jake Paul. It turned out not to be Jake. But in terms of the match, super fun match. Everybody in the arena was definitely invested in this. Very pro Seth, but also acknowledging how great Logan Paul really can be. He's a guy with only 5 matches, whatever he's had. He understands. He understands what to do. He understands selling. He understands everything. And it's kind of crazy that he does, but he does. And it was a fantastic match. I liked Seth's strategy of stomping the hands of Logan, because that has been the story leading up to this match, with Logan knocking Seth out twice in the build to this. So Logan getting his hands stomped. When he did go for the punch on Seth, it did not have the same effect. And Seth was able to recover or kick out. Now, my favorite spot of the match, I think, was everybody's favorite spot. We knew we were going to get Logan Paul going for the big top rope frog splash onto the table. He's done that basically in every match, so we knew we would get it this time. And the Prime water bottle turns out to be, I guess, his business partner or friend, KSI. Greg is 45. He does not know who KSI is. I fully admit that. So I have no clue who this guy even is, other than he's just associated with Logan Paul. So KSI, still dressed in the water bottle mascot thing, is holding Seth down on the commentary table while Logan climbs to the top. And it was so well executed and well timed, because I guess KSI is trying to take a selfie. And when Logan starts to jump, Seth grabs KSI's arm, pulls him on the table, and Logan lands on him instead in just a spectacular spot. And he laid there and sold that forever. It was insane. We get both guys back in the ring. We get a pedigree kick out. Logan Paul hits a GTS on Seth Rollins. That got a lot of oohs and ahs from the crowd. In the end, we get Logan going up for the big Van Terminator, or the big coast-to-coast Shane McMahon move, and he gets met with a super kick. Looked so gnarly, and then Seth capitalizes with the stomp for the win and gets the win in this match like I predicted he would. You're not going to knock Seth out twice on TV during the build and then have him lose to Logan as well. Very happy Seth got this victory, and it was a great match, and it was everything I pretty much expected and wasn't disappointed in any way. Great stuff by both guys. WrestleMania was off to a great start, that is for sure. After that, we had the 6-woman match with Trish Stratus teaming up with Lita and Becky Lynch, who are your current WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. They're taking on Damage Control in a 6-woman match. This was an okay match, but it was a match that didn't really have much heat. We didn't even really get much explanation what the hell Trish and Lita are even doing here and why they're associating with Becky and why they're back. It feels like the reason they're here is because Becky Lynch is a big star. Becky Lynch needs a match at WrestleMania. You could have just put Becky and Bayley together one-on-one, but I think this was a way to incorporate some legends and to give Bayley some star power, or I'm sorry, to give Becky some star power and, you know, something to do and get Damage Control on the show. But in the end, I would have been satisfied with Becky and Bayley one-on-one. And instead we got this. It was okay. Babyfaces, of course, get the win here. Second rope manhandle slam onto Bayley for the win. And we will have to see if we do get some sort of turn here with Trish or anything like that, because there have been some rumors with Becky and Trish possibly working at SummerSlam this year. So, and Lita's currently a tag team champion. So I feel like both of these women will be back on TV. Lita for sure, since she is a title holder. And as we would see on night 2 in the women's showcase, it feels like they're setting up Ronda and Shayna to take these titles off of Becky and Lita, and I hope they do. In terms of Damage Control, they're losing all the time. They lost here. They would lose the next night on Monday Night Raw, and there are rumors circulating about Bayley. We don't know her status with the company. Dakota Kai said, "I love you, Bayley," on Twitter. There have been some rumors, but nobody has confirmed anything, at least as of the recording of this review. In terms of the status of Bayley, we will probably know more about this on Saturday, and we'll get into it. But if she is done with the company, we wish Bayley the best, because Bayley is awesome. Best of luck to Bayley, whether she stays in WWE or goes. We love her. Bayley is absolutely fantastic. And then after that, holy shit, what a match between Rey Mysterio and Dominik Mysterio. This match was one of the matches I was looking the most forward to. This, much like the Bloodline, was an incredible story. Maybe not as good as the Bloodline, but damn close. When the hell did Dominik turn? Was that all the way back at Clash at the Castle, right? And you think about the things that Dominik has done, being manipulated by Rhea Ripley, the Thanksgivings, the Christmases, the Valentine's Days, you know, beating up his dad in his own den, you know, getting taken to jail, insulting his grandparents. This kid has been an exquisite prick and has really come out of his shell. I mean, Dominik, he was getting a lot of criticisms when he was just the bland babyface son of Rey Mysterio. He was good in the ring, but he wasn't great enough in a lot of fans' minds to be given the TV time that WWE was affording him. And this heel turn, much like, you know, the run that Rhea Ripley has been on in this year, has been the best thing that's ever happened to Dominik. He is a true performer. You can see it now. The kid has always had it. And being able to put in this position and being able to be the heel that he has been, he has done great work. And this has been a very emotional and personal issue between the two, father against son. Dominik constantly goading his father for months and months and months, and Rey showing as much restraint as a human being can show before finally agreeing to beat the shit out of his son at the biggest wrestling pay-per-view of all time. Took a while to get there, but we got there. And with Dominik going to jail and becoming a changed man and coming out hard, to Rhea Ripley cutting up his chicken tenders and keeping ketchup away from him because it's too spicy, it's been so entertaining. And even though you want to murder Dominik for what he's doing to his family, his mom, his sister, his dad, his grandparents, everybody, the disrespect he's showing, the lucha libre, style of wrestling, and every shitty thing Dominik has done, he's been doing it while being super entertaining. I am loving this kid. And there was a time where I was wondering why the hell he was even on TV. And I've completely changed my tune now. I want to see this kid on TV. This is a feature match, one of their best stories. And the kid, is it's going to be sink or swim for him. And much like we would see Cody in the main event, that was a test to see what Cody could do and how he can handle himself on this stage. Cody passed with flying colors. I think Dominik here did the same. It was so good. And I think my favorite one of my favorite parts of this whole match was the entrances. Dominik gets the police escort coming into the building there, wearing the Rey Mysterio mask, which is a huge sign of disrespect in Lucha Libre. If you're not given a mask, you're not supposed to wear one. But what's crazy is every time Dominik puts on Rey's mask, they look exactly alike. You cannot tell them apart. I thought they look so much alike that I thought it was like, you know how sometimes wrestlers fool us with an entrance. You think it's going to be one guy and it's the other guy. Seen that a few times. I thought that Rey was in that police escort. I thought they were maybe making the fans think that Dominik was making his entrance, and then Rey would jump out of the police van and his music would play and it'd be like, psych, it's me. That's how much they looked alike. But once Dominik got out, you could tell it was him. He's a lot taller than Rey. And they escort him to the ring. They uncuff him. And it was just a spectacular entrance. And I didn't think that could be beat, but it was. Because after that, we get Rey making his entrance, 3 separate theme songs. He comes out to Snoop first, as Snoop drives him in the lowrider. So I think it's Nothing But a G Thing we hear first. And then it goes into Eddie Guerrero's music, which immediately made me, just gave me the deep feels, because I don't think I've ever even heard that in person before, because last I saw Eddie wrestle, he was still doing his Latino Heat theme. So I've never heard the Viva La Raza before in person, and it really popped the crowd, and it was so heartwarming because we all loved and missed Eddie. He's been dead for almost 18 years now. And Rey then transitioned into his own music as he got out of the lowrider and had climbed those big, long steps that was all the way up there and then walk all the way down the ramp. Rey had a huge entrance presentation, both of them did, and it was so much fun. And then the match turned out to be really good because there is a great story being told. Aaliyah and Angie, Rey's family, is at ringside for this. And now that Dominik and Rey are actually in the ring, Dominik is going to get taken here to the woodshed. Now, he is bigger than his father, and so a lot of the match was him kind of beating up on Rey a little bit. But Rey was able to give and dish out a lot to Dominik as well, at one point even taking off, I don't know, maybe a belt or something, and spanking and whipping Dominik. He was leaning over, bent over, I think, in the middle turnbuckle in the corner, and Rey took his belt and just spanked his ass, which was great because that's what Dominik needed. But that wouldn't stop him from being the colossal prick that he is, because he would find his way on the outside of the ring, and he threw water right in his sister's face, just splash right in her grill. Oh my God. And that just was enough to piss off Angie. She slaps the shit out of Dominik to an amazing pop from the crowd. We also get Finn Balor and Damian Priest out there. Legado del Fantasma show up. It sounds like they're trying to resurrect the LWO. That's kind of cool. They come out to even the odds, and that's when Dominik decides to get the chain. He's got a chain, and he's wrapping around his hand, and he's about to climb up to the top rope with it, when Bad Bunny, who they announced as being on commentary as a guest for this match, and as soon as they did that at the beginning of the match, I told Elizabeth, I said, Bad Bunny is at ringside. He's either going to be involved in the finish, or he's going to be involved in whatever rematch these two guys have at Backlash, because Bad Bunny is the host of Backlash. It's in Puerto Rico. Sounds like that's what they're setting up here. And sure enough, Dominik gets that chain. Bad Bunny hops off headset, takes the chain away from Dominik, allowing Rey to hit the 619 and frog splash of his own, because Dominik hit the 619 and frog splash on Rey earlier that Rey was able to kick out of. And Rey got the victory over his son, won the match with a big assist from Bad Bunny, and Legado del Fantasma came out to help out with Priest and Balor. The whole match with all of the moving parts was incredible. Happy birthday, by the way, today to Dominik. April 5th is when this is being recorded, and I do believe today is his birthday. And he did a fantastic job in that match. He was really on point in a match that's this big, of a scale this big, and to be able to know where you're supposed to be, what you're doing. Dominik was out there working like a 20-year veteran, and this match was all kinds of fun. Loved it. Rey got the moment, and we're going to get another match between these guys, because the next night on Raw, in a very predictable segment, Dominik interrupted a match with Rey and Austin Theory. Theory got the win. Bad Bunny was at ringside. He got assaulted by Damian Priest and put through a table. So now that feels like it's setting the stage up for one of two things to happen. Bad Bunny either just being involved in Backlash or in the Rey and Dominik match in some way, or they're setting up Rey Mysterio and Bad Bunny taking on Damian Priest and Dominik in a tag team match, which is interesting given all of the history between Damian Priest and Bad Bunny. But even though Priest is a heel, he might get cheered in Puerto Rico, and I don't know if you want to put Bunny and Priest against each other in a match like that. So we'll have to see what happens, but it was obvious in this match that Bad Bunny was going to be a part of whatever rematch they do. Now, one thing that didn't really match up in the Rey and Dom match was the Cinnamon Toast Crunch stuff. Now, they were having these ads throughout WrestleMania. I think this is only going to get worse, and it's going to happen more and more. And really, they're not so bad, but you got to be aware and conscious of which ads are going with which match. Because when you have an issue as personal as Rey and Dom, that really is a serious issue. This is a son betraying his family. To have a dancing piece of breakfast cereal around this match was really out of place. I did read, though, that Sol Ruca apparently was the person under the cinnamon toast costume, because a lot of times they use NXT talent. So it'll be interesting to see what other NXT talent was doing on WrestleMania, because we know in years past, Charlotte and Sasha and Bayley, they've all been parts of big WrestleMania entrances before they made it to TV. So it'll be interesting to see who was all a part of this. But her being the Cinnamon Toast Crunch mascot was pretty funny. So that was a little bit out of place. But in terms of the rest of the match, it was very good and one of the highlights of the whole weekend for me. And then we were on to Charlotte Flair defending the SmackDown Women's Championship against Rhea Ripley. What a match. This match, for all the controversy it got leading up to it, when our buddy Uncle Dave there put it in everybody's head that this was going to be a main event, and we had Category 5 freakouts from the freaks about this, and Charlotte being in another WrestleMania main event, and all the shit in the pants that's going on over that was ridiculous. But I'll tell you, man, had this match been the main event, I would have been fine with it. This match would have been more than fine as the main event. You want to know why? Because it was a real fight. These women beat the shit out of each other in extremely physical match. And it's so made up for what they did at WrestleMania 36 in the Performance Center. Even then we thought Ripley was going to get her big moment in Tampa, but then when they put it in the Performance Center, they might have changed the finish. Charlotte won, pissed a lot of people off. Rhea Ripley kind of stalled out for a little while there, but she was reborn in Judgment Day. And I think it's been a very specific push for Rhea Ripley. Triple H wanted to make her a very big deal, and she's been so dominant all year. She won the Royal Rumble. I didn't see any way, even with WWE's history of having people win when they shouldn't, like we would see on night 2 and like we saw countless times with other variations of Roman Reigns when he was a babyface, and John Cena, and of course Charlotte herself, have been accused of winning too much all the time. But even with WWE's history of doing that, I saw no universe where Charlotte wins here. It just didn't make any sense. Her title victory came way too abruptly when she came back and beat Ronda Rousey. Everybody was upset, but I wasn't, because that told me the same thing that it told me when John Cena won the Money in the Bank titles in 2014 after Bryan got injured. Cena won the titles. Everybody freaked out. And I'm like, will you just chill? Do you know why he won the titles? He won the titles so he can pass them to Brock. And I think that's the same thing they were doing with Charlotte. They wanted Rhea Ripley. They didn't want Rhea Ripley to beat Sonya Deville for the championship. She's got to beat WWE's toughest, best, and most decorated star. That's why I was okay with Charlotte being champion and having this match, because what it meant, it didn't mean to me that Charlotte was getting another opportunity. It meant that Rhea was beating Charlotte. And this match was so good. My God, it was so physical. They beat the hell out of each other. They may have been trying to prove a point. Maybe they felt they deserved to be in the main event, and they were going out there and showing WWE and the fans that they could have handled the main event spotlight just fine. And they're right. They could have. But there was just too much story in that tag title main event, or in that tag title story. That had to be last. That had to be the main event. But this was really good. And if this was our final match of the night, Greg would have been perfectly fine with it. But with some of the bumps they were taking and the physicality, in the end, Rhea was able to hit Charlotte with a second rope riptide for the win. Charlotte had a little cut on the bridge of her nose, which I think happened after one of those Germans that she flipped out of, and a couple of those she landed right on her face. They were just taking really, really rough bumps here, and it was a match that was basically clean. I mean, there was not a lot of, there was no overbooking to this. We didn't have a ton of interference, no ref bumps, no shadiness, no shenanigans. It was just two women beating the hell out of each other, and the better woman won. Rhea won, put Charlotte down. Charlotte gave her the acknowledgement after the match, and Rhea had quite the moment there. And now, as we would see on Monday with her face-to-face with Bianca Belair, either letting the fans know that this is your Randy Orton and John Cena of the women's generation, or they might be booking some sort of unification match between these two very, very soon. We'll have to wait and see what that all means. But I love the fact that Bianca is one women's champion and Rhea is another. This is the new generation. The four horsewomen are out. One of them's gone from the company. A second one might be gone from the company. I think Becky will be there forever, and Charlotte probably will as well. But Charlotte is even reportedly taking some time off from WWE as well. There have been some rumors of her entering a bodybuilding competition. She does look incredible. She looks super ripped. So if that's what she's going to be doing, best of luck to her. And that's a plus for the fans because they get Charlotte out of their face for another few months, while Rhea Ripley perhaps moves to the SmackDown brand with the rest of Judgment Day to torment poor Rey Mysterio. Otherwise, they're a Raw act right now, so I don't know how you're going to have Rhea Ripley on Raw all the time. I feel like Judgment Day might be making the move to Friday nights, because otherwise I don't know how you deal with that. Unless, like I said, the plan here is to unify the championships. We didn't get any new belts or anything like that on Monday night, but there still are rumors that WWE, or at least Triple H, had plans to do that, unless now that the dude who looks like a pencil mustache drawn on a Walmart welcome mat decides to screw everything up. If that's still the plan, hopefully we'll get the tag team title situation cleaned up. We don't need 4 titles. We need these to be separated or unified, one or the other. Same thing with Roman's titles. Same thing with Bianca and Ripley. Whatever they're going to do, figure it out. Get your title situation under control, because it's kind of a hot mess right now. After Charlotte and Rhea's match, we go to the ring where The Miz is back with Snoop Dogg. Now, they opened up the show at the beginning here as well, and we would see them periodically throughout night 1 and night 2. And Miz gets on the mic and claims that he issued an open challenge to anybody in WWE and nobody was man enough to take it. So this is where I thought that they were going to be able to find a place for Bobby Lashley or LA Knight, or perhaps even bring in Stone Cold Steve Austin or some other major surprise. They kept setting this up. They set this up 2 nights in a row and gave us a couple of letdowns. So The Miz is talking about his open challenge, and who comes out? Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee, I love. I think Pat McAfee is great. Michael Cole really likes Pat McAfee as well, because he was jumping up and down like a maniac at the commentary table when McAfee was coming out. And I really, really do like McAfee. It was great to see him, but I would have rather had Lashley. I would have rather had LA Knight. I would have rather had Austin. WrestleMania used to have these moments. Remember when The Rock came out and hung out with Ronda Rousey and he beat Eric Rowan in 5 seconds, and they had that other brawl with like the League of Nations and Foley and Shawn and Austin, and there was the Rock, Hogan, and Austin beer bath at WrestleMania 30. Rock came out and lit his name on fire one year. I was just hoping for some sort of fun surprise, and instead it was Pat McAfee, who again I like, but I would have rather seen Pat McAfee come out on SmackDown and do that to The Miz, not WrestleMania. So Snoop decides to make the match. He says he's got authority to do it. So the match is on. Pat McAfee fights and beats The Miz with some help from his friend George Kittle, who was hanging around at ringside. He got involved. I mean, it was a fun enough, match and moment, but one that I didn't really need, and one that I was hoping would be involving somebody else. And when you would see what Lashley would do the next night, coming out and waving to everybody, you wonder what the fuck they were even bothering putting McAfee out there for. So it was a little bit frustrating, but we'll talk more about that on night 2. And now it's time for the main event. SmackDown and Raw Undisputed Tag Team Championships on the line. The Usos defending against Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. I loved this so much. We were waiting for this match. This was going to be a great moment for Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. KO main eventing 2 WrestleManias in a row now. Last year with Austin And now this match, and Sami Zayn last year had a memorable WrestleMania as well, although in a losing effort to Johnny Knoxville being pinned under a giant mousetrap. Here we are a whole year later. He's had that whole saga with the bloodline. He's gone from being, a goofy joke to being a serious competitor. And it's been an amazing journey and character development for Sami Zayn. Everything he's gone through with Roman, with Jey Uso, his relationship with Kevin Owens, getting back together with him, finally coming together, and now in a position here to take down the Usos and win Tag Team Championship gold together in the main event of WrestleMania for a couple of childhood friends. That had to be awesome. Can't say enough good things about the match. Even though Rhea Ripley and Charlotte completely tore the house down just a few minutes earlier, this match still maintained its energy level. The crowd was still super hot for it because there was so much story. There was so much heat in this match, so many compelling relationships between Sami and Jey and Sami and Owens and Sami and the Bloodline and everybody. You knew this thing was going to be a very dramatic affair. And all match long, I kept saying to Elizabeth, I don't know what the finish is going to be, but whatever it is, Sami has to pin Jey. That's got to be what they do. And oh boy, do they. 3 big, dramatic, almost I'm sorry, I love you level of haluva kicks from Sami to Jey Uso, pinning Jey right in the middle of the ring, and Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens capture Tag Team Championship gold. Apparently, they had some PWG references on their gear, which was also really cool to be able to reference that and have that moment together. And I've said that before, I think it would be really cool, if I was able to win a championship in the biggest wrestling show ever with a childhood best friend. Sami and KO are the modern day Edge and Christian. They have a very similar story, and they're all Canadian. And these guys have been through everything together. And for them to share this moment was super heartwarming. And what a way to end night 1. I mean, this was such a great night of wrestling, this first night. Every match, it felt like, was a home run. I think the only match that, maybe fell a little bit flat was the 6 women match, and maybe Cena in theory, but otherwise, the crowd was hot. The crowd was energetic. These matches were good. They were executed well. All the talent performed and came through, and we were all riding pretty high on Saturday night. And we all told ourselves, hey, if tomorrow is anything like today, this is going to be one of the best WrestleManias of all time. And on Saturday, WWE couldn't get any bigger in my mind. And like I said, here we sit just a few days later, and how things have changed in such a short amount of time. My God. But night 1 was a blast, and now it's time for night 2. We get to the arena a little bit later on Sunday, since we don't need to be there so early to get all of our pictures and all that nonsense. So we got there about an hour before the show started, and the show opened up with Brock Lesnar versus Omos. Now, I kind of half predicted this earlier on in the day. I said that I think that match could open up. Cena opened on night 1, and Brock could essentially do the same thing on night 2 and also be on a plane back home before match 2 is even over with. So Brock and Omos opening up was announced on social media about an hour before the show. And this was about as fun as you could expect it to be. I predicted Brock Lesnar to win, but that was only if Brock was going to be sticking around. If he was leaving for any reason, then I kind of thought Omos had to get the win here. Omos did dominate Brock for a while, but Brock was able to hit him with a couple of Germans, which the fans really loved. And in the end, we got the F5 spot that we knew we would get. And that's what I said in my predictions. I'm like, Brock is going to hit an F5. You absolutely know we're going to get that moment. So that means Brock either has going to win or Omos is going to kick out of that. And Omos did not kick out of that. Brock Lesnar beat him with just one F5, and that was it. It made the fans happy, and I liked what WWE did. If they did have plans to use Brock the next night, as we would see on Raw, getting his match done here made fans believe that Brock was probably gone for a while, because that's kind of what he does after WrestleMania. So kind of smart with the placement of the match based on what they would do the next night on Monday Night Raw, even though Raw sucked. After that, it was time for the women to have their WrestleMania Showcase match. This was 4 teams, the team of Chelsea and Sonya Deville taking on Natalya and Shotzi against Raquel Gonzalez and Liv Morgan versus Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey. This match was not nearly as good as the men's match. I predicted Shayna and Ronda to win because they should win. They did win. The match wasn't great, but the right winner's there. And I have a feeling that Shayna and Ronda will be the ones to take those belts off of Lita and Becky down the road, and maybe sooner rather than later. In one of the most disappointing segments of the entire weekend is what they did with Bobby Lashley. It's almost insulting. It almost makes you mad when you think about it. Bobby Lashley's match against Bray Wyatt had to be canceled due to reasons that we're still not 100% clear on right now. But it does sound like it's a Bray Wyatt issue, not a Bobby Lashley issue. So this isn't anything that was Bobby Lashley's fault. They stuck him with Bray. There was issues, whether it be politically, creatively, personally with Bray. We don't even know. Whatever the case was, Lashley is now out without a match. So what do? They stick him in the Andre the Giant Battle Royal on SmackDown on Friday night, which he wins. And I was hoping that he would win the Battle Royal on Friday and then come out and demand to face somebody. And again, we could get one of these great surprise moments. Either bring somebody back who's injured, like a Randy Orton. Of course, Randy Orton might not be healthy. Or, some sort of a surprise, like interrupting The Miz. If The Miz is going to have a mystery opponent, I mean, Lashley coming out and squashing The Miz wouldn't be that satisfying, but at least it would get Lashley on the show. At least it would give him a match. And the fact that on a 2-night event, on a night where you had time to bring out Pat McAfee and Shane McMahon, as we're going to talk about in a minute, you don't have time for one of the best wrestlers on your roster and in Bobby Lashley, and one of your most over wrestlers on the roster in LA Knight. So the fact that The Miz and Snoop were out there like 3 or 4 different times throughout nights 1 and 2, and neither of these guys came out there to do anything was super disappointing. So now they introduce Bobby Lashley as the winner of the Andre Battle Royal. He comes out there with his trophy. He's not dressed to compete. He just comes out to the ramp and he waves. He fucking waves to everybody. So in my mind, this is WrestleMania. They're not going to have him come out there and just wave. They're going to do something here. So I just kept waiting. I'm like, okay, somebody's going to attack him or somebody's going to come out. That's going to set up an impromptu match and Bobby is going to murder someone with the Hurt Lock. And it didn't happen. He waved and then boom, they cut to whatever the next commercial was. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. That was a huge disappointment. And I would like to know what WWE's thought process on that was. The fact that they just couldn't find something to do, like they couldn't come up with anything. This is a company that apparently rewrites shows several times a day and has changes mid-show. I think there was even a change that took place on Monday while Seth was in the fucking ring. They changed something on him. So they can't come up with something on the fly, or, you don't have to shoehorn him in and give him something stupid to do, but you should have rewarded Lashley's great year of work. He should have blown off his issue with Brock. What sense does that make? For Lashley and Brock to never really have their issue settled. They wrestled at the last pay-per-view, and instead of putting them together in a blow-off, you stick Brock with somebody completely new. Is that because you couldn't decide who you wanted to put over in that situation, so you just decided not to have the match? Well, that sucks, because those two guys should have been in a fight pit match or something. It's a disgrace that they couldn't find anything to do with Bobby Lashley. I can almost live with LA Knight a little bit more, because he's a little bit newer, obviously, than Bobby Lashley, but he's over. And what are his initials? LA. What fucking city are you in? LA. I had ideas for him. I'm like, if you could get Austin to come in, like, why couldn't they get Austin to come in? Or could they offer him something? Hey, we'll pay you a bunch of money, come out, do a promo with LA Knight, and you can go, what? And he'll go, yeah, what? Yeah, what? Yeah. It would have been fun. Crowd would have gotten a kick out of it. We'd have been laughing and smiling. They had Hollywood 316 shirts all over the merch stands. There was Stone Cold's beer, in all the concession stands. Where the fuck was he? So I just thought for sure they could bring him out and do something like that, and we saw none of that. No Lashley, other than his wave, no LA Knight, no nothing, and that was a huge disappointment. And WWE should have done better by Lashley, because I feel like he was royally screwed at this year's WrestleMania. Not cool, WWE. But you know what? They would make up for it in what was the banger of all bangers. Holy shit. Gunther versus Sheamus versus Drew McIntyre for the Intercontinental title. This was one hell of a triple threat match, and it's a match that I was proud to see live. I have never been happier to predict a match wrong. I think the only reason I predicted Sheamus is because not only can he win a title he's never won before, you can also get the title off Gunther while protecting him if you want to move Gunther on to be a championship contender. But as I was saying in the predictions and a few podcasts before, why is there a rule? There is no rule. that says Gunther can't be Intercontinental Champion and still be a contender for a world title. He absolutely can, and I would have been perfectly fine if he did retain the title. And plus, we have Honky Tonk Man's IC record sitting there in September, and if we can get Gunther to that point, I would love to have a name like his as the longest running Intercontinental Champion in company history over the Honky Tonk Man. So maybe we can still get there, but in terms of this match, if you thought Charlotte and Rhea Ripley was a war the night before, that was almost nothing compared to this. And those women beat the shit out of each other. This was so incredible and such a fun match to watch. Drew was out there all in white. He had a pretty cool entrance. All of them did. And they just beat the hell out of each other for a good 20 minutes there. I love the spot where Sheamus hit I think it was 30, close to 30 forearm smashes on his buddy McIntyre, and he just kept counting, and the crowd was just loving 21, 22, 23. Such a fun spot. And Gunther was in full beast mode here. He was manhandling these guys a lot in the match as well, and the way he was powerbombing Sheamus and then powerbombing Sheamus onto Drew. He was diving off the top rope, landing on these guys. A lot of times during the match, he was beating the hell out of both of these guys, and I think it's a great vote of confidence for Gunther that the company was basically like, here, go out there and beat these two former world champions on our biggest stage. WWE has got big plans for Gunther. At least we hope they do, because now that the mustache lunatic is back, anything can happen. But prior to that, it really does feel like WWE has big plans for Gunther, and I would not be opposed at all to Gunther holding on to the Intercontinental title for the foreseeable future. He can get a title shot while being IC champion. I have no problem with that. Hell, Gunther could enter the Money in the Bank as the IC champion and win that. There's definitely a match with Brock Lesnar coming up sometime in the future. But I, for one, am in no rush to see Gunther versus Brock happen right now because of what we have learned about Vince McMahon and his involvement with WWE Creative. If we can get Vince out of the picture, then I'm all for Gunther and Brock. But if Vince McMahon is booking a Gunther versus Brock Lesnar match, Brock Lesnar will win. Period. He just will, because it's Vince. So we got to get the old man out of there, and this match is sitting there at WrestleMania 40 or wherever we want to do it, maybe even as early as SummerSlam, but depending on what Brock Lesnar's future is. But Gunther, at this point, I think can be doing anything. He can be contending for the title tomorrow if he wants to be. So we'll have to see what they do with Gunther, but his victory and his win, the crowd loved it. It was just such a dominant performance, and it made you feel like you got a star on your hands here. And it's nice when WWE really gets behind somebody that you like to watch wrestle. You think of the pushes that Gunther and Austin Theory are getting right now. I think fans universally prefer Gunther over Theory, even though WWE seems to prefer both of them equally. I like the rise that they're on. I like that WWE is kind of creating these monsters on each side, for potential collision courses. We got Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair. We've got Gunther and Austin Theory. It's too bad that Miro is not tearing it up in AEW, because I would have loved to have Miro and Gunther dream match debates. But, Miro's not even on TV. So it's cool to see WWE get behind a guy that we all like and that can work. And his match with Sheamus and Drew was the banger of a lifetime, and it was an honor and a privilege to be a part of that. And I've seen a lot of great Intercontinental title matches and Intercontinental title changes in person in my life, and to watch this one, watch Gunther successfully retain was a treat, absolute treat. That match was so good. Everybody was retaining their titles on night 2. Up next, we had Bianca Belair defending her Raw Women's title against Asuka. Now, I was really kind of hoping that Bianca would retain here, even though Asuka is so overdue for a WrestleMania victory. Would have loved for her to win the title again, and kind of hope that she still does at some point. But in terms of Bianca winning the title at the last 2 WrestleManias, I thought it would have been cool if she retained here. And of course, you can build her and Rhea Ripley as each other's counterparts and really set them up for a collision course in the future, and further establish Bianca as one of your top performers or personalities in the company. And that was solidified by Bianca's entrance. Wow, that was so good. Bianca had a special entrance. She had kind of like a girls' dance troupe. I think it was called Divas of Compton. And there was one girl specifically at the end, this like contortionist who was doing some crazy things on the stage, and she actually walked down to the ring with Bianca. As crazy as that was, what's even crazier is the story that Triple H shared in the WrestleMania press conference about that very little girl whose mother died that very day. Just hours before she's out there with Bianca Belair, that little girl, her mom dies. And she still performed. She still went out there and did it. She had the support of people, I think, all day long. It's a super emotional story and super sad, and really cool that she was still able to, I don't know how old she was, but to be able to go out there and do that entrance with Bianca after, the tragedy of a lifetime, losing the person probably closest to her in her life. So that's got to be crazy. And that was just a really crazy side story there. The match was good, but not nearly as great as what Rhea Ripley and Charlotte did the night before. Asuka missed the mist. She went for the mist, and I think Bianca ducked it. She was able to lock in an armbar on Bianca, and Bianca was able just to power through it and lift Asuka up into a KOD for the win in a really good finish. So the match was good, maybe not great, but still good. I enjoyed it, and it was good to see Bianca Belair have her third straight WrestleMania moment, and I'm happy for her because, I really like what some characters can do for kids. Like a part of me wants to be selfish. I see the competitor and I see the beast in Bianca, and the 45-year-old fan in me is like, turn this girl heel and have her be a killer. You stick a killer instinct on this woman, she's going to be unstoppable. You cut that braid off and stop the dancing and the twirling, and you get her focused like maybe Rhea Ripley is. I don't know if there's anybody, even some men, that could be able to beat Bianca with that type of attitude. But I also really appreciate her impact on children and what characters like this can do. That's why years ago, I didn't fly off the rails about John Cena, because I understood what he did for WWE's business. I wasn't thinking one-dimensionally or from the perspective of a 19-year-old kid full of piss and vinegar that just wants the Attitude Era back. I was thinking of the perspective from the company and who their core audience is, which is kids. And to be able to see how people like Cena can affect and inspire kids of that generation. Bianca Belair and John Cena isn't for us. They're for the kids. And I really love the impact that Bianca has on the kids and the role model that she can be for little girls. I love all of that. So I will allow the children to have Bianca Belair for a little longer. You can keep her a little longer, but you cannot keep her as long as the kids kept Cena. At some point, we're going to take her from you. And she's going to do what Bayley did, hopefully. She's going to do what Roman Reigns did, hopefully, and move into that part of her career. WWE clearly is probably no rush to do that. So we're probably going to get that music in the same routine for a while. But I understand. I'm looking at the performer that's there. Bianca Belair is going out there and doing her job, doing it well. She's a great role model. This is just one chapter of her career. She is very, very young. So if you start getting tired of Bianca, or her character is played out, or it's stale, or it doesn't do anything, you have to understand that it's not for you. It's not for you. Are you a 6-year-old girl? No. You act like one, but you're not one. I'm kidding. But I'm talking about the people who complain here. So Bianca can continue doing what she's doing, but at some point, we got to take her, guys. We got to take her, and we got to turn her into a monster killer, because I think if she can unleash some of that attitude that we saw from Kurt Angle, kind of when he moved away from the goofball and got a little bit more serious and, started, having that killer instinct, you put that on Bianca and you are going to have an unstoppable force. So Bianca retains, and I had no issue with that. And then it just keeps getting weirder. In one of the strangest segments I've ever seen, certainly one of the strangest ones I've ever seen live, we are back yet again in the ring with Snoop Dogg and The Miz. And The Miz is pissed off and bitching about him losing to Pat McAfee the day before. And he says that he wants a do-over. He wants a chance to make that right. And so he's going to issue another open challenge. So this is the second open challenge now. So no LA Knight, no Bobby Lashley, no Austin, no nothing. He makes a second open challenge, and whose music plays? Here comes the money. Yeah, here comes the money is right. Shane McMahon. A return that literally no one asked for. No one. Last I heard, Shane McMahon was backstage a couple of Royal Rumbles ago, rubbing everybody the wrong way, restructuring the match, shoehorning himself in, pissing everybody off, and the next day we read he was gone from the company. Sounded like he would never be back. I like Shane, always have. I've seen him wrestle at WrestleMania as well, way back in 1999 at WrestleMania 15 when he fought X-Pac. And he's back out there and he's doing his juking and jiving entrance and he's dancing his way down to the ring. And I'm like, why is he coming out here? Now, the fans are going to react to Here Comes the Money because, of course, they are. But nobody really needs Shane out there. And I was just like, why are they doing this? Hasn't Shane and Miz already wrestled on a WrestleMania before? So Shane McMahon is back. I'm not excited to see him. And then he gets in the ring. And of course, Snoop, just like he did the night before, decides to make the match between Miz and Shane McMahon. So the match starts. Shane starts throwing his really, really shitty punches. He whips the Miz into the ropes, goes for a leapfrog, and tears his quad. What is it with the McMahons and their quads? Vince McMahon at the Royal Rumble 2005 dives in the ring, tears them both. Triple H tore one famously as well. And now Shane McMahon on a leapfrog. He's 53 years old, I believe. Might even be older than that now. I'm not sure how old Shane is. I know he's older than his dad was when Bret knocked him out of the screw job. And he's trying to do leapfrogs in there. He tears his quad. And he goes down, just crumples like a ton of bricks. And I have the whole thing on video. And you could tell instantly that it was legit. And you can hear me on video going, that was legit. That was legit. And I was going up with my camera to the, to the screen and back down to the ring. And you could just tell that he was in bad shape. When you looked at the Tron, the camera was really kind of a tight shot on the Miz. They weren't showing Shane at all in the ring. The doctors were attending to him. They got him out of there and they started having him leave through the side entrance there near the announcers. But from where I sat, it looked like it was his knee. I just thought he tore his knee all up. And then when I was doing the stream on Monday, I still hadn't heard that it was his quad. And I was like, yeah, and then Shane blew out his knee. And you guys were like, no, that was his quad. He tore his quad. And that's just a complete disaster right in the middle of this impromptu segment with the Miz. Now Shane goes down and they had to call the audible of all audibles. Snoop, the grizzled vet, just calls it in the ring, says, I got this, winds up knocking the Miz down, hits the worst people's elbow in the history of professional wrestling, and pins and beats the Miz in a great audible. I don't know if they got word down to one of the producers who told him what to do, or if the Miz was calling it or what, but Snoop seemed perfectly fine jumping in there and taking care of business. So I don't know if maybe it was initially intended for Snoop to get involved. Once Shane and Miz had their match, Snoop would get in there and do that stuff, and they just went home early. Or if none of that was planned and Snoop just went in there and did that. Either way, it was about as good of a recovery as you could have for an absolute disaster taking place right there in the middle. And it was really kind of a shocking thing to see. It was a return that I didn't want to see. I feel terrible for Shane because I'm a Shane McMahon fan. I feel horrible that he had to come out there and injure himself to that degree. He even seemed winded after that long walk to the ring. He got on the mic when he got in the ring and he was struggling to catch his breath. So he was already, kind of out of breath and blown up a little bit. And then, he buckles and the quad tears, and what a complete disaster of a segment. And man, what a mess. But best of luck to Shane McMahon in his recovery. I don't know what his return meant. Had he not gotten hurt, would we have seen him on Monday night? Is he back now? Is this part of the Endeavor agreement? All the McMahons get a job? Like, what's going on? So we don't even know what Shane McMahon's return really meant. Hopefully we'll find out like what the original plan was, unless the plan was just to bring Shane in for a one-off. Maybe WWE realized it might be the last time to get him on TV before the sale is completed and finalized. One last moment for Shane to have on a big pay-per-view in front of the audience. Maybe that was what the plan was. Otherwise, if Shane was back, why is he back? And what's he doing back? And do we need him back? So in the meantime, I just hope his recovery goes well, because that is absolutely heartbreaking for that to happen to him. And then it was time for the Hell in the Cell match. Edge versus Demon Finn Balor. The red cell is gone. The original cell is back. photos had leaked earlier on in the week of the WrestleMania set construction, and you could see the cell hanging over the ring there, and it was a very great sight to see that big, beautiful, not red bastard hanging over the ring. I loved it. Way to go, Triple H. Hopefully now that Vince McMahon is back, he will not paint this thing yellow. The entrances were pretty cool. I was a little bit worried about the entrances because we're on the West Coast and the ceiling on SoFi is a transparent ceiling, so light shines through. And we knew this match had to happen as late in the card as possible. Otherwise, you would risk a daylight entrance. But this was second to last, so it was late enough in the night. Edge's entrance was very cool. He came out to Slayer in kind of like a Brood-style entrance with a mirror helmet and just an amazing costume and display. My first time seeing a demon entrance in person, which was also pretty cool to see in person. And then the match starts. They get in the cell. We get going a little bit. They start beating the hell out of each other. Edge pins Balor in the cell with the kendo sticks, kind of like how the Usos and New Day did in their Hell in the Cell match a few years ago. And I think Edge gets out. Is it a ladder? He starts pulling ladders and shit out from under the ring, and he throws the ladder at Finn Balor, and it catches him right in the top of the head, and he goes down. And he gets cut open badly, super badly. But from my seat, I don't know what's going on. I think I see Edge throw the ladder, but I can't tell that it hits Finn in the head and he's hurt or anything. All I see is Finn laying in the ring with a couple of people attending to him. And at one point, I'm sure this wasn't shown on camera, Balor is kicking his legs, like kicking them. And I'm like, what is going on down there? It looked like he was kicking them out of frustration. And I was convinced that he tore something. Obviously, he was kicking his legs, so his legs were okay. I'm like, oh my God, he broke his arm, dislocated his shoulder, did something, and he knows the match is over, and he's kicking his legs. And I'm like, twice in a row? We just saw Shane McMahon collapse. Now Balor, and then it's Elizabeth, because she had a better vantage point than me. She goes, no, babe, there's two women out there cleaning up his head. So she noticed they were cleaning his head. I thought he was injured. So when I found out he just got cut, I'm like, oh, good. That's fine. He can handle a cut. They're just out there because they have a no blood thing and they're just cleaning him up. No big deal. I didn't know that he nearly sliced his head off. So he finally resumes the match. And I guess what happened here is they maybe went home early. A lot of those final spots were rushed, like boom, 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 one after another. I liked where Balor missed the coup de grace through the table. That was kind of cool. And Edge, in the end, gets the win by giving a concerto to Balor. I think there was even a red chair in there somewhere. And completely bashes Balor's head to shit. And that's how he wins the match. So they may have finished up a bit early there with Edge and Balor as well due to the injury to Finn Balor. And later on in the night, he would post a photo on social media of what had to have been a 4-inch gaff right down the middle of his head. And it was just split wide open. I mean, my God. So he took, I don't know how many staples. Did somebody say they might have stapled him up right there at ringside? They might have, because as big as that wound was, I don't know how you would get that blood to stop. Blood was all over the ring. He was clearly bleeding badly. Luckily, the body paint really hit it, because had Balor been out there as normal Balor, they might have had to stop the match completely because he would have literally been covered in blood. But all the demon body paint and stuff really covered it up. But that was a really, really nasty cut and one of the worst injuries, I think, in WrestleMania. And we had two of them right back to back like that. But Balor will be okay. I predicted that match wrong. I thought Balor would win. I didn't think you bring back the Demon just to have him lose, especially after he's been getting over so well and had kind of a career resurrection with Judgment Day and everything he's been doing with Edge. I thought if he won here in the blow-off with Edge being seemingly pretty close to retirement, it felt like Balor would be the guy to put over here. But hey, when am I going to complain about an Edge victory? You know, I've been privileged to watch Edge wrestle in a lot of pay-per-views and a lot of championship matches all throughout his career. I even watched him wrestle in a dark match before he came to TV. So all these years later, to see him here as an old man just like myself, getting a win over Finn Balor, not the worst thing in the world, but I did predict Balor to win. And finally, it is time for the main event. Roman Reigns defending the undisputed Universal WWE Heavyweight Championship against Cody Rhodes. Everybody on night 2 had retained their titles so far. It felt like the table was set here for Cody. Everybody was ready for Cody, primed for Cody. It's main event time. They make their entrances. Cody's entrance is so spectacular. My God, it's so great. He comes up through the stage. His music's playing. The whoa in the crowd is deafening. Everybody is rock hard for Cody. Now, there were still plenty of Roman Reigns fans. I mean, you could argue that this was split 50-50 even because Roman got a crap load of cheers too. But the crowd was really into Cody. You could feel it. It just felt like it was going to happen. He gets all the way down to ringside where Brandy sits and she has their baby, and he picks up and hugs his daughter, which definitely got him a little bit emotional. And he had his weight belt, which he presented to Brody Lee Jr. -1 was in the front row as well. That was a really cool and heartwarming moment for Cody to give him that belt, since I believe Cody had Brody's last match, did he not? And that was just a really nice moment. So it felt like with everything they were doing with Cody, with the entrance, with Brandy, with the kid, with -1, with getting in the ring and kissing the mat, it was just it. It just looked like he is a guy, and that's why Cody is such a professional, because when I was watching him on the Tron, I said to Elizabeth, I said, that's the body language of a man that's about to win a world title. Because he was giving away nothing. He did not seem like a disappointed person. Remember at Clash at the Castle when McIntyre faced Roman? You could tell when Drew was making his entrance that he was not winning that title in his homeland over there. So Cody had a completely different demeanor. I mean, he was primed and ready. It felt like it was his time, and I cannot believe what they did to us. But anyway, Roman Reigns had an awesome entrance too. They had a bunch of pianos out there where they played Roman to the ring. Roman's music and entrance is always so epic. I'm a big, massive, not only fan of Roman Reigns, but also long title runs. I love them. I think part of the reason I love them is because it frustrates modern fans. They can't handle title runs longer than a year because they have not experienced that before or very rarely in their lives. Where me, I kind of like it. It's old school. So what do I care? But every now and then comes a time where it just feels like everything is in position for somebody to win. And WWE has done this before, but I'm not sure if they've done it in as grand a fashion as this. This was something else. Now, the match itself was very good. Like I said earlier, Cody Rhodes, if he was given the pay-per-view WrestleMania main event test, he passed it. A+. A+. It was a great match between him and Roman. A lot of drama, near-fall kickouts. I love the story that was being told of Roman not being able to get it done. Cody was kicking out of a lot of stuff. Roman looked visibly exhausted and frustrated almost at the same time. And he was reeling, man. Solo Sikoa was out there fucking with Cody, and you knew it was only going to be a matter of time before the referee tossed him out, which he did. So Solo leaves. And then we get the ref bump. Once we get the ref bump, boom, Usos hit the ring. They attack Cody, but Owens and Zayn then come in as well to neutralize them. And when you could see from my seat, you could see Owens and Zayn running in from like the hard cam area. And you were like, yes, they're going to dispose of the Usos. Solo's not around. Roman's disoriented and all discombob, and Cody's just got to grab him here and hit him with the crossroads, and this thing is going to be over. And finally, Cody gets Roman in position for the first crossroads. I think he hits him with a second one, and then he finds himself up against the ropes. I think Paul Heyman jumps up on the apron to distract the referee. Solo Sikoa returns. Boom, Samoan spike to Cody, followed by a spear by Roman Reigns. 1, 2, 3. Absolutely deflating the Los Angeles SoFi crowd. Unbelievable. Those of you who've been watching this channel for all these years, can you think of any time where I've actually been truly upset about a match outcome? Normally, it's me telling everybody else to calm the hell down, because just stop freaking out. It's not the end of the world, blah, blah, blah. I'm always, the cool, calm, collected granddad who wants to lecture everybody, right? When can you recall me flipping my lid or being truly disappointed in a match outcome? Sure, it's happened here or there, but it's not nearly as frequent as the average fan. I'm usually fine with whatever the fuck they want to do, to be honest. But this one, it felt like the wrong call was made. You can make, and what a lot of fans have to realize about this is you can make arguments for both. There is not just one answer that's right here. I'm not saying that Cody was the only way to do this. There is still plenty of story to tell with Roman Reigns and Cody, because a lot of people are pointing out that Cody can still find his way to the championship. And that's true. He can. He can find his way through Money in the Bank. They might have even teased that a little bit with Paul Heyman on Raw saying, Cody, you're not going to get a match tonight, not at Backlash, not at SummerSlam, nowhere. So if Paul Heyman has already made that statement, maybe Cody's going to just make his own match by winning the green briefcase, and then he can have a match whenever he wants, maybe even calling a shot in a future Madison Square Garden show. They could do something like that. They certainly could. Cody can still have his moment. But I ask you this, how in the world are you going to find a way to make Cody's moment any better or any bigger than it would have been on Sunday night? That would have been just an amazing victory. It would have been a long time coming for Roman's long run. Another reason that this match outcome really kind of deflated me, it's like it's the same outcome we've seen. This is the same way he beat Drew at Clash of Castle. Remember? Solo Sikoa showed up and helped him win. We've seen this finish so many times that it just felt like it was time to do another one. And yes, Roman is still champion. He can now surpass 1,000 days. You can still build to a great moment when Roman wins when Roman loses the title. I'm not one of those fans who thinks the world is over now because I didn't get the outcome that I wanted. There's still more story to tell. This is the never-ending story with Cody. I saw some people saying, oh, the people don't win the title on their first shot. They don't? Brock and Rock didn't? Think of all the people that have won on their first opportunity at the championship. It's happened a lot of times. So I think to make that argument is a little bit silly. I definitely agree there's more than one way to book things, but when you have everything set up and primed so perfectly to crown a new champion, it would have been fine. The people that argue against Cody winning, well, you can't do that because of this, or this. It's fine if you want to have that opinion, just don't have a condescending opinion. Don't have a smug opinion. Why this is the right way to do it. And here's why you guys don't understand anything and I'm the only one that's smart. Those are the type of opinions we're seeing way too much of right now when it comes to these debates and, arguing over who should win. What I am saying is that if WWE would have decided to put Cody over, it would have been fine. There would have still been plenty of story to tell with Roman. And Roman dropping the belt in and of itself would have been an epic moment and a really, really big deal. Can it still be a big deal? Sure. Can it be as big a deal as it would have been on April 2nd in SoFi? I don't think so. And that's why I think they really kind of made the wrong call. And our best hope is that they can just recover from that and Cody cannot be damaged at all. A lot of people think this is going to hurt Cody. Some people think Cody is more over now because of this. We'll find out. I don't have an opinion yet. We got to see what happens because there's never been more uncertainty inside of WWE's creative machine than there is right now at this very moment. So we have no idea what's going on behind the scenes, who's going to be pushed, and what the plans for Cody are. And if there were plans, if any of those are going to be derailed now with WWE's with new owners and all of that stuff going on, the Vince and Triple H dynamic and everything that's happening in that company right now. I just hope that WWE didn't miss a big moment here because this was a great WrestleMania, even with a night 2 that did not live up to the level of night 1, although the Gunther victory was great and we had our moments here. I think had Cody walked out of the building as champion, it would have made a great WrestleMania even greater because the vibe in the building was so deflating. The vibe of the people walking to their cars that night it just didn't feel right. And I remember telling Elizabeth when we were walking, I said, imagine if Cody would have won the title. You'd have people standing on cars. I don't think anybody would be rioting and setting shit on fire, but you'd have a very, very happy crowd. People would be cheering and all of that. And it was nobody was mad or screaming. It was a lot of just, oh, this is bullshit. And a lot of fans going home unhappy. Plenty of number ones in the air, plenty of Roman Reigns shirts, plenty of people singing the praises of the tribal chief. I have no problem with that. A lot of people taunting from their cars, Roman Reigns number 1, go ahead, brag and be happy. I'm glad that you're behind somebody and I'm glad the person that you were cheering for won. That's what wrestling is all about. I got no issue with those people. But when it comes to what I would have done if I'm in a booking position, I would have given an audience who turned out 80,000 of us 2 nights in a row. This was not a cheap trip at all. I didn't even have to buy plane tickets, and we dropped more money than I'm comfortable saying on camera. And we deserved it. We deserved to have that moment, and it's just it's disappointing. So I really wish Cody would have won. He didn't. Unfortunately, on Monday Night Raw, things didn't get any better for Cody. It looks like he's going to be in a program with Brock Lesnar now, which is kind of interesting because if WWE's creative plans, even though they're a mess right now, if the creative plans for Cody is to put the belt on him in the future, maybe this summer, he's got to beat somebody in the meantime. You got Saudi Arabia coming up on the horizon. Brock probably wants that Saudi money. They're going to book him in a match with Cody, and Cody will probably beat him in Saudi Arabia. I can't see Cody working Brock at Backlash, although he might. But it feels like Cody and Brock would be something that they'd save for Saudi Arabia, which is coming up in just a few weeks. So maybe we get Cody and Brock one-on-one in Saudi, and then Cody will win that, beating somebody else, another major star on his road back to the championship. Maybe beating Brock automatically qualifies him for the Money in the Bank in London, and he wins that and cashes in on Roman that night or something like that. Who knows? But Cody feels like the type of babyface who would call his shot if he won the briefcase. So sure, plenty of story to still tell with Cody. That's true. But when you think about the moment that his victory would have created, I'm sad as wrestling fans that we didn't get to experience that, because it would have been great. It would have been really great. So we didn't get it, but all in all, still a very fun WrestleMania. Like I said, I had the time of my life, and looking forward to doing something like that again, although it probably will not be next year in Philly. But we will see. I'll do my best to go to as many WrestleManias in the future as I can, because this one was a whole hell of a lot of fun. So there you go. There's my WrestleMania weekend in a nutshell. I don't know how long this review is going to be, but I know it's going to be long. Thank you for sitting through it. I appreciate it. Thank you again to everybody I met during WrestleMania weekend. It was a true pleasure to get to meet and talk and interact with so many of you who watched the channel or have listened or taken part in stream chats before. Just great to finally put faces with names. And it was just a tremendous experience. So thank you again to everyone who said hello to me during WrestleMania weekend. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to tune in to the next Winged Eagle podcast, where we will dissect the WWE and Endeavor sale and what this means for the future, and what Vince McMahon and his weird mustache is going to be doing, and how badly he's going to screw up the creative that's been pretty damn good for the last 10 months. So we will see. You guys have a great rest of your night. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.